Let's now finish off qualifying.
With only hundredths of a second separating the first few drivers, we should have a cracker of a race on our hands.
Tiff, I wouldn't count on it because, well, Menu previously just absolutely stonked the rest of us. And it's both runners on the front row, which makes it even more depressing. Well, at least I can say I qualified in the top 10 this time. And while Derek, he's just well being Derek. So I'm just gonna have to cope with whatever times he puts up and then just hope he scores points eventually. That's all I can really do.
Here we go again then, with the second race of the day.
It's on. And it's go for race number 2. Can I manage to close up the 9-point cushion on Alain Menu, who is the current leader of this championship, and one of the Hondas just got forced into the gravel trap that now moves me up 3 positions on the start, and I'm now closing up to the second of the 2 Audis, really hopeful in saying this race goes a bit better than my previous one did. I did have to settle for second in the end, but again, I had absolutely no answers for Menu whatsoever. I don't think I would have been able to beat him, but I'm now up into 4th position, so already having a better race at the start than I did before, and I am slowly moving my way up through the pack, and now up into 3rd position I go. All that's ahead of me now are the 2 Renaults. I'm going to assume it's Menu leading and Jason Plato who is in 2nd. I'm now already 7 seconds quicker, probably because that was the first lap, and trying my hardest not to spin the car around in the early stages, as of which that probably was one of the things which did cost me at the end of the day, but again, still don't think I would have been able to beat the catatonic Menu, because, well, he was practically unresponsive once he took the lead anyway, and now one of the Hondas is behind me, it looks like. And yes, it is one of the Hondas who is now behind me. So trying to see if I can close that gap up to Menu. I'm now 1.6 seconds behind him and closing fast at the moment, even though we are only 3 laps into this race. I'm really going to have to try and see if I can eat into that gap, as I'm now just giving him the bumper and I put myself in the grass. Even though I did try to make it so I was there, but unfortunately that did not work out. Is Menu behind me or in front of me? I'm going to assume he's in front of me, but he could be behind. Anyways, I'm really going to have to try and eat into that gap. He already has 9 points, I think. Sorry, 10 points is now the gap, because he did score the pole. And I should also mention there is a bonus point for pole position, so technically I'm really going to have to start clawing back the points if I'm going to still be in contention for this championship before the halfway point. I'm really going to have to try and eat into that gap. So give him a little bit of contact there. And don't know if that was Menu or Plato I just ran into, but again, I am closing in on the Honda that is now leading this race. Going to assume that's James Thompson. Of course, he's the only driver who has a DNF in this championship so far, because, well, he crashed out in the first race at Silverstone, and now I am up to the lead. Although I still have no idea where Menu is, but if he's not in 3rd, then he definitely has to be 4th, because, well, Renault are just simply being, well, Renault. I am also pretty sure I'm going to have a drink in a couple of laps, because I don't think my throat is going to survive the full distance. Anyways, 5 laps down and we still have another 33 laps to go. Checking to see if my microphone is on. Thankfully it is. And I am slowly pulling away from the field. And unless I have a spin up to this point, there's definitely an indication that says I probably will be dominating this race, but again, we're only 6 laps into the event, so I'm pretty sure whatever happens from here, the interval is going to be increasing from here. It's also good to know that Tim Harvey in the Peugeot was able to score points. Well, even if it was only a single point, he still scored points for Peugeot. Which does now mean, of course, that practically every team has now scored points, with the exception of Ford, as of which Vauxhall is technically one of the lower class teams compared to the higher class teams, which are Honda, Audi, Volvo and, of course, Renault. And there is a Vauxhall Vectra sign I just saw there. Excuse me. Anyways, 7 laps into the event now, and I am hopeful in saying I can manage to at least have a dominant run similar to what Menu had in the previous race, and if I do, I can at least increase that points interval down to a possible 7 points. So even though he may pull further away from me if he finishes second in this race, I will also be able to do damage limitation, because I finished second in the first race but finished first in the second race. It's all about damage limitation up to this point. Of course, Thruxton will certainly be one track on the schedule I'd rather not return to, but I'm going to have to return to later on in the season. There's almost nothing I can do about it. It's the one track I have to return to regardless of knowing if I hate it or not in terms of racing. And I know very well the racing at Thruxton is going to involve some chaos. And Thruxton, at the moment, compared to all of the other tracks I've raced on, that appears to be my jinx circuit on the schedule. Anyways, 10 laps are down, and I've now set a new best lap time of a 46.1 flat, and really trying to see if I can waltz away with the lead. Of course, Menu had something very similar to this in the first race, but it seems as though I'm now going to have the upper hand here at Brands Hatch, it would seem. And now, am I going to set a new personal best? Yes, I am, by 0.05 of a second. And Now it looks as though I'm going to have to deal with some lapped traffic. So, 11 laps into the race, I'm already starting to approach some back markers, it would seem. And now I'm just trying to survive. Because as long as I can manage to hold on to the lead and hope that Menu drops further back in the order, then that's probably the only hope I really have. Anyways. "12 laps now into the event, and we still have another 26 laps to go. And it is the two Ford Mondeos I'm now coming up to overlap. A little bit of contact there with one of them, who has basically just run well up the racetrack and is probably attempting to shoot his way down the racetrack as well. So, still have another 25 laps to go, but it is fair to say anything can happen up to this point. So, I am just continually pulling away with the lead at the present time. So, I would say it's going to be at least a while before Ford manages to score points this season, or at least score a single point. Because Ford up to this point, in terms of their performance, they've just been abysmal. They're also the only team now who has not scored points, as of which Peugeot is now a team that has managed to score points this season, with Tim Harvey scoring a point in the previous race here at Brands Hatch. I'm also hopeful in saying that my teammate Derek Warwick can manage to score points before the season's out, and it would be a great shame if he doesn't, but I'm hopeful in saying that won't happen. And so it now looks as though I am approaching two more back markers, and I think one of them probably is Derek, the way I see it, who is fighting hard with that Nissan of Anthony Reid. And he pulls off the manoeuvre. Derek now falls back to 13th, it would look, and now I'm going to try and see if I can help him to regain that position. And having to run a little bit high there on the curbs, but again, at the moment all seems well. I'm just continuing to pull away from the rest of the field, and it looks as though the Nissan is now attempting to overlap 2 in 1, and he's actually done it. He's actually managed to overlap 2 cars in 1, and oh, fuck you, whoever that was. It was one of the Fords I just got spun out by. That is not helpful in any way, shape or form. And I've spun out. Also trying to see if I can get back on the racetrack. And I get hit by both Ford Mondeos. On the same lap, I get hit by both Ford Mondeos. I'm actually mad now as a result of that. Well, good thing to say I'm dominating this race. Meaning that I do not have to worry about... the two runners. Oh, not anymore. I was dominating this race, but now I'm not. Although I am hopeful in saying I can manage to keep the mistakes to a bare minimum. And looks as though James Thompson is holding up both of the Renaults, meaning that can at least put me back in the fight for the championship. So I'm up to, I think, 87 points now, and I think by the time I come out of this weekend I should be on 102 points the way I see it, if my calculations are correct. Meaning I will have in some cases proven I can limit the damage, but it all depends on where Menu finishes, because, well, that's the only thing I'm really concerned about. Being concerned about where Menu finishes, and then hopefully, if I'm lucky, I can manage to eke into his championship lead. Hopefully. But anyways. So, I've now cleared my teammate Derek Warwick, who I think was up ahead of me after I spun. And now, I just have to hope whatever happens next, I do not get spun out by the back markers again. Because, well, they were evil, the way I see it. I'm also going to have to get a drink in a couple of laps because, well, my voice is slowly but surely dying as a result of all of this chaos and this playing with madness. And this whole playing with madness business. And there goes one of the Nissans. And making it so I can be prepared to make my overtaking manoeuvre on the Peugeot, even though I get forced behind by the Audi, who is now spun off into the grass, or just went off. Don't know which one is which, but anyways. We are now on to lap 22, meaning we now have just 17 laps to go. And my laptop at the moment seems to be doing okay. It is managing to keep up with the rendering as I would have more or less expected it to. And now we can come through the final corner once again to completing yet another lap. Basically lap umpteen is what I think this is, because, well, we're above 20 now. Oh, okay. Yep, okay. Well, there's one thing I've learned I cannot do. I'm also going to have to mute myself in a couple of minutes because I really do need a drink. The AI is still keeping me honest here, but somehow the is so he's doing wonders for me at the moment, the way I see it. And it looks as though my laptop is falling out of line now, because I am recording this in 1080, even though the video itself will be exported in 720. Okay, so I think I'm going to mute myself once I've completed lap 25 so I can have a drink, and then once I have done that, I can basically just get on with the rest of this race. So, I know this might be a comfortable lead, but I can assure you it's not as comfortable compared to the lead Menu had in the previous race. So, I can afford to have a couple of spins, but I cannot afford to have too many spins. Of course, I don't think this is going to be the weekend sweep like I had at Donington, but if I can manage to get another track sweep before the season is out, then maybe I should be able to retake the lead in the championship at some point, and then eventually win it somehow, if I get lucky. So I'm going to mute myself next time around so I can get some water, and then once I have done that, I will be back to my usual commentary. So coming round onto the Jack Brabham straight now, and I shall officially mute myself whilst I try to rehydrate my voice. Okay, I'm now back on the headset once again, and basically all I can really say about my performance so far is domination. Because I have basically been dominating this race more or less from start to finish. I've had a couple of mistakes here and there, but thankfully nothing that's costed me to the point of no return, and looks as though I'm going to continue to lead up to what will be the end of this race, and then once I have done that, maybe I can manage to get another weekend sweep on one of the other tracks before the halfway point. So, Menu basically dominated the first race, but I've basically come back to dominate the second race, it would seem, and the Renaults aren't even running in second and third, they are running in third and fourth. Although I don't know which one is ahead of the other, because the one thing this game doesn't reveal are the names of the AI, and I am afraid to say I simply don't know who's ahead of who. But the way I see it at the moment, everything appears to be okay. And it looks as though I will at least manage to eat into Menu's lead by hopefully 4 points, because he did clinch the pole after all, and pole position usually does result in a bonus point. And we now have just 6 laps to go here at Brands Hatch, as I'm now closing in on one of the Volvos, also the leading Nissan, it would seem, as the 2 Peugeots are also involved in this. Don't know who's ahead of who though. Although I'm going to assume Tim Harvey is the leading Volvo the way I see it, because, well, he did score points in the previous race, which is a great motivation booster for the Peugeot team. And I'm now currently running in the first position, as it looks as though I've now overlapped the Ford Mondeo probably 3 times up to this point. And I pushed one of the Peugeots out wide as I was overlapping him. Don't know who that was, but I'm going to assume it must have been Patrick Watts who I pushed out wide. Of course, I'm still mad at myself for taking out Tim Harvey when I didn't want to. I'm still mad at myself over that, but again, it will come and pass at some point, hopefully. As we now have just 4 laps to go here at Brands Hatch. And even though my qualifying pace is nowhere near good enough to beating the AI, I'm now overlapping my teammate, it would seem, once again. I don't know where he is running, but I'm going to assume he's not inside the points. But if he is, then that's a great motivation booster for the team, because Derek is still yet to score points this season. And it would be awesome if he could score here at Brands Hatch, but I wouldn't consider that to be the case, because it looks as though he's trying to engage himself in a battle with one of the Nissans, although he probably doesn't care about me because he's only really focusing on his own race. Probably doesn't care that I'm even his teammate because, well, our cars have 2 completely different paint schemes. Of course, his paint scheme is practically all over the place, and it's also one of the secret cars, I might add. Whereas this one is just in red and white in terms of its livery. And overtaking Derek once again, who is ahead of one of the Nissans, although technically I did help him under those regards. Derek does give me a nudge, once again as he did before, and I am trying to get the hammer down as much as I can. Fortunately, this is not a track decided on speed. I'm now 36 laps into this thing, and we have just 2 laps remaining, and doesn't look as though the Ford is going to move out of the way for Derek to get through, but as long as he's able to beat the Nissan, then what have I got to lose? Then, well, you know, what have I got to lose? I mean, if Derek does manage to score points before the halfway point, that will surprise me, but again, I don't think he's running in the points in this race. Anyways, final lap, and now I know I can practically cruise home to victory the way I see it. Doesn't look as though Thompson, who is the leading Honda, is going to catch me. I don't think James Thompson is going to catch me up to this point unless I make a ton of mistakes, but doesn't look as though that's going to happen as we now round out the final corner. Don't really care about beating my best lap time as I now come across the start finish line, and I now head over to the checkered flag. Yeah!
Another victory for the new Vauxhall driver. His team must be very happy with his progress so far. So let's have a closer look at the final positions.
And Menu wound up finishing 3rd. Oh well, at least I can say I still managed to gain back 4 points that I lost in the previous race, which I think is a good thing. And Derek was worse than I thought. He finished 14th. Oh well. Well, at least I can say Tim Harvey scored some reasonable points for Peugeot, and those are your bottom finishers.
After a great day's racing here, let's have a look at the current championship standings. The championship is still wide open, so there's all to play for at the next circuit.
Okay, my correction. The points margin has stabilised as a result of Menu winning the first race. Although I am hopeful in saying the next race turns out to be better than this one has, because I just really hope the next weekend goes better than this one did. That's all I'm really saying, but yeah. 8 rounds down and still another 16 rounds to go. It's still all to play for. Yes, I will save it here. Just gotta take whatever I can get. As long as I'm still meeting the objectives, then what have I got to lose?